ABR FX 2012 continues, and we are back to the matters of sitting. In this particular part, titled quite straightforwardly, Why Spastic Quadriplegic Child Can't Sit, I'm going to help you to understand the reasons behind the troubles with sitting in relatively plain and straightforward language. Because unfortunately, most of the time, your understanding of your child falls into two extremes. Either you get diluted medical perspective, which is very remote from your everyday world, where the medical profession throws complicated terminology at you by all sorts of reflexes and all this kind of stuff. Or, on the other hand, you get some irresponsible promises from alternative practitioners who promise to deliver magical results using your vulnerability and sell you the irresponsible dreaming. So in this video, I'm going to give you a very straightforward narrative. I'm going to walk you through the tests again, and I'm going to give you just two key ideas as a framework. What you have to look for are two big things: paradoxical reactions and the importance of the seating platform. Well, to learn more about those things, you're welcome to watch this video. And we're seeing that sitting is impossible because of this combination of troubles. Well, two new things that you can learn from here, from this particular example, are the idea of the paradoxical reaction. Namely, this is the reaction that goes in the opposite direction. So you can see that what we are trying to achieve is bending the child forwards, and what we are getting as a result, the opposite. So he responds in the opposite paradoxical fashion, and he does it in several areas. So he does it from the top and he does it from the bottom. So therefore, another important thing for you to understand and take a note of is the seating platform. This is more intuitive understanding. Well, seating platform is quite simply the bottom of the pelvis. You would expect a person to sit on the bottom of the pelvis so that the legs would actually be freely dangling underneath without having any particular weight transferred on them. So if you want to be able to sit comfortably, you need to have the seating platform and the ability to then bend forwards comfortably, right? So you see, this is what you actually want to have if you want to be able to sit. And the opposite is true, right? If instead of going forwards, you actually shoot backwards, and instead of having to sit on the bottom of the pelvis, your legs slide off the bench because you can't sit on the bottom of the pelvis, you only have the back of the leg to sit on, well, obviously you are in trouble. And this is exactly what we're seeing with this particular child. So therefore, what do we want to see? We want to see the key transformations, right? We want to see the improvement of the flexibility of the entire back, so he wouldn't be going into this paradoxical reaction. We want to see the emergence of the seating platform. We want to see the release of the legs, which instead of the stiff and single units would become flexible. So these are the key ideas that we actually want to observe, and of course for that we need the extra abdominal room, we need the flexibility of the entire body, and we know this is what is going to be associated with the head control. So these are the combinations that of the things that we actually want to see. And well, I wouldn't be talking about this if we weren't actually seeing this. And now let's enjoy the transformations experienced by this child over this short period of time. So first of all, we're getting back to this easy return, right? So you see, like moving back and forth instead of responding in a paradoxical fashion like a single unit. So this is a remarkable achievement in its own right. But what is the key lesson now for you? Well, now you understand what to look at. And now you realize, what is this? This is the regular, legitimate response to being bent forwards. It's not a paradoxical anymore. As I move him forwards, he actually bends. As I move him back, bring him backwards, he actually follows. So this is their ability to respond to the external help, right? And he actually has the abdominal space which allows him this movement. And at the same time, well, the last but far from being the least here is the position of the head that he actually controls instead of having it thrown backwards. So this is one part of it, right? But the other part that we talked about was the sitting platform. And yes, here we go. The sitting platform actually emerged. Now, as I'm bending him forwards, you can see this is no longer a singular motion of just like a single plank of wood. It's a bending over the sitting platform. So that's a key, crucial achievement. And without the sitting platform, well, my friends, you can't really expect anything, any sort of sitting. You can spend years training a child and sending all sorts of the signals to the brain, but this is not going to work unless you build these structural fundamentals. And again, what you can see very clearly, the legs, instead of those stiff sticks which are not bendable at all, even under the entire weight of the child, now he is actually getting them quite flexible and bendable, at least to the extent that they don't interfere with the bending forwards. So this is great, and this is what you can see based on this several key transformations, such as the emergence of the sitting platform, such as the release of the arm, such as the emergence of the head control. Well, plenty of great things are happening to this boy now, instead of all these troubles and struggles that he used to face before. Well, let's have a look, right? I already mentioned that the single arm support is much more difficult than the support by the trunk, right? So because it's a much lesser support. Well, if your child doesn't sit, if you have a quadriplegic child, try to do this type of fit. You know, just put yourself so far aside and make sure that the child is able to sit. Well, I would never have risked this type of move at this particular situation, right? Because then it would have been just dangerous for his head. So he could have, you know, thrown his head backwards and hurt himself in various sorts of forms. So this is first very clear thing. So this is a different angle. But what we are seeing, this is a support by a different arm. So it's not just a single position. And you can see here that, well, in this particular placement, he's capable of doing the selective motion of the body in respect to the pelvis, right? So this is great. That's what gives him the adjustment. But there is more. You can see here that the arm could be moved selectively from the head, right? And this is the 3 parts adjustment. Head moves separately, the arm moves separately, and the trunk moves separately. And look at the legs. At the same time, there is nothing happening there. There is no movement. Well, and these are the great things that you already seen in the previous video. Well, support by a single hand. But now I'm paying attention to this, that actually, you see, we can move the hand even when we provide the minimal support, right? Because the support by the extended hand, this is like the very little. And again, you can see here the selective motion of the arms instead of the unified single block that used to be before. Well, this is a very different situation now. I hope that you can see and actually start understanding how to analyze the progress, right? So again, it's a lot of parents, they actually, unfortunately, being put in the position when they think, well, there is sitting with support and there is sitting without support. Well, but let's put it like this. Yes, he still requires support in sitting, but let's, you know, compare the two. And what we've seen before, well, there was no sitting whatsoever. If we were not, you know, unless we locked him in the wheelchair with all sorts of belts, right? But on the free surface, there was no sitting at all. Well, and now there is a significant evolution. So, but what I want to invite you to is to appreciate these components, not simply the sitting itself, but this beauty, the beauty of the independent hand movement, where he can actually move it selectively from the trunk and adjust. And actually, of course, this release of the arm itself. So these are the great transformations. These are the great transformations, and I'm intentionally bringing you through a number of those so that you would be able to see how it comes from different angles and views. And actually it is possible to hold him. See, I'm actually way out of the picture and he's there sitting quite, with the absolutely minimal support. So this is the overall first lesson that I want you to make from this particular part, that the transformations of sitting come in stages, come in the components. And if you have those particular troubles, such as the absence of the sitting platform and such as the, probably I should draw it in red, right? So you see, to make sure that you understand this is negative, right? So, and at the same time, the paradoxical response of the head and the paradoxical response of the spine and the sliding legs, well, there is not much of the good things to expect. And again, I maybe will be repeating myself, but this is the consistent message I want you to realize, that if these things, if you see those things when your child is young, when he's 2, 3, 5 years of age, well, unfortunate reality is he's not going to outgrow it. And as the puberty comes closer, all these troubles are just going to magnify several times. So this is the section where we talked about the significance and the quality of the transformation experienced by this child, and where you can actually understand the evolution. So it's a trunk support first, the support by which the higher it is, the easier it is for the child. So the lower it is, the more he can do himself, and the closer you are to the independent sitting. And respectively with the arms, it's the same logic. The closer you are to the shoulders, the more support you provide. And if you support the child by 2 hands, well, that's obviously a greater extent of the support, right? As opposed to the situation when you support the child by just 1 hand. So what you want to achieve the situation where it would be possible to get the child supported just by a single hand, right? You want this minimal support. You don't want this massive maximum support. So this is just a gallery of the views on the left that shows you all sorts of troubles that this boy has been in before, right? And again, you can see that now the sitting is no longer a challenge for him. He can actually connect and express himself. So our next step is going to go into the details. What are the reasons why there was such trouble, and what actually has happened? What did we do? What have we done? So in order to make this a remarkable transformation possible. And that is going to require a closer zoom.